The distress call. The emergency alarm cut through the silence of Research Station Kepler-9 like a blade. Director Chen stood frozen at the observation window, watching 6 massive warships materialize from the darkness of space. Their hulls were black as void itself, covered in sharp angles that seemed designed to inspire fear. Behind her, the station's crew scrambled to their posts. "Identify those vessels," Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. "Scanning now, Director." Lieutenant Oker, a Zen officer with pale green skin, worked frantically at his console. His 3-fingered hands moved across holographic displays with practiced speed. Classification confirmed. Ravager-class destroyers. They belong to the Skrell Dominion. The word sent a wave of terror through the command center. Everyone knew about the Skrell. They were scavengers, pirates who swept through frontier systems like locusts. They took everything of value and left nothing but corpses and burning stations behind. Their reputation stretched across 50 star systems, and nowhere in that territory had anyone successfully defended against them. Kepler-9 was a scientific outpost, home to 8,000 researchers from 12 different species. They studied the unique properties of the neutron star at the system center. The station had sensors, laboratories, and living quarters. What it didn't have was weapons. Not even basic defense shields. The governing council had deemed such things unnecessary this far from contested space. They had been wrong. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. A face appeared on the main screen. The Skrell commander had reptilian features, scales that gleamed like oil, and eyes that held no mercy. When he spoke, his voice was a hiss that the universal translator rendered into cold, precise words. "Research Station Kepler-9. You will shut down all systems and prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in the elimination of all life aboard your station. You have 5 minutes to comply." The transmission ended before Chen could respond. Around her, the crew looked to her for guidance. She saw fear in their eyes. These were scientists, not soldiers. They had families, dreams, research projects they wanted to complete. None of them had signed up to die in the cold vacuum of space. "Options," Chen said quietly to her senior staff. "We have none," Oker admitted. His voice carried the weight of defeat. "Our escape pods can't outrun their fighters. Our communication array can reach nearby systems, but the closest military response would take 18 hours. We have maintenance drones and research equipment, nothing that could stop a combat team." Chen looked around the command center. Through various monitors, she could see life continuing throughout the station. In the botanical wing, Krevik's researchers tended to alien plants under artificial sunlight. In the residential sector, younglings from various species played in the recreation area while their parents worked. In the medical bay, doctors treated routine injuries and illnesses, unaware that death was approaching. 8,000 souls. 8,000 beings who trusted her to keep them safe. "Send distress calls on all frequencies," she ordered. "Every channel we have access to. Military, civilian, diplomatic. Someone might hear us." "Director, the nearest Alliance patrol is 23 hours away. The Torvan fleet is engaged in border conflicts. The Menari have already sent regrets." Oker's voice was hollow. "No one is close enough to help. Send the calls anyway." Chen straightened her shoulders. "Try the emergency bands. All of them." "Director, that includes frequencies we don't have authorization to use. Including the restricted Terran channel." Chen had heard stories about the Terrans. Humans, they called themselves. They had appeared in this region of space only 2 decades ago, emerging from a previously uncharted sector. They were bipedal, similar in basic structure to a dozen other species, but something about them unnerved the galactic community. They came from a death world, rumors said. A planet so violent that it had shaped them into something unusual. Something dangerous. The Terran government had established limited diplomatic relations but mostly kept to themselves. They built strange ships, spoke in clipped efficient sentences, and had military doctrines that other species found disturbing. Most civilized races had evolved beyond widespread warfare. The Terrans seemed to have perfected it. Use all channels, Chen said firmly. If there's any chance someone will respond, I'll take it. The communications officer nodded and began broadcasting. The message was simple: coordinates, situation summary, number of civilians at risk. Chen watched the timer count down. For minutes until the Skrell expected compliance. For minutes to decide whether to surrender or fight with tools never meant for combat. Director, we're receiving automated responses from most frequencies. Everyone is either too far away or unable to assist. The communications officer paused, her antennae twitching with surprise. Wait. We have an incoming signal. It's from the Terran frequency. Put it through. The response was text only, appearing on screens throughout the command center. Chen read it twice, certain she had misunderstood. Message received. Marine response team deploying. ETA 14 minutes. Hold position. Terran Federation sends. 14 minutes. Oker's voice rose with disbelief. The nearest Terran outpost is 6 systems away. Nothing can cover that distance in 14 minutes. It's physically impossible. Chen felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, but perhaps the possibility of it. Broadcast our acknowledgement. Tell them we'll hold as long as we can. The Skrell didn't wait for their deadline. 3 minutes after their ultimatum, boarding craft launched from the destroyers. Chen watched them approach on tactical displays, each one carrying teams of raiders who would sweep through her station like a plague. All personnel, this is Director Chen. Proceed immediately to designated safe zones. Lock all bulkheads behind you. Security teams, prepare to delay hostile forces as long as possible. Medical staff, set up emergency treatment centers in the core sections. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Help is coming. We need to survive until it arrives. The first boarding craft attached to the outer hull with a sound like thunder. Magnetic clamps locked into place and cutting torches began burning through reinforced plating. The Skrell were coming, and they would show no mercy to anyone they found. Chen pulled up schematics of the station on her personal display. She marked the locations where civilians had gathered, the paths the Skrell would likely take, the choke points where their limited security forces might buy a few extra minutes. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all she had. The cutting torches broke through. Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented into space. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut automatically, but that only slowed the raiders, not stopped them. Through security cameras, Chen watched Skrell warriors pour into her station. They moved with brutal efficiency, weapons raised, searching for prey. The first security team tried to make a stand near the eastern docking port. They had stun weapons meant for controlling unruly researchers, not fighting trained killers. The engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. Chen watched good people die, and there was nothing she could do to save them. Director, the Skrell are advancing through sections 7, 12, and 18. Our security forces are falling back but taking heavy casualties. Oker's voice was thick with grief. We're not going to last 14 minutes. We won't last 10. Chen opened a channel to the entire station. All security personnel, fall back to the civilian zones. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. Your job is to buy time, not to win battles. More alarms. More breaches. The Skrell were cutting through the station's hull in multiple locations, flooding in like water through a cracked dam. Chen's displays showed red markers spreading across the station map like a disease. 8 minutes since the Terran response. 6 minutes until their promised arrival. It might as well have been 6 hours. Then something changed. The science officer shouted in alarm. Director, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions. Multiple signatures appearing in close orbit. Energy readings are off the scale. Chen looked at the external cameras and saw something that defied everything she understood about physics. Space was tearing open. Not the smooth transitions of standard faster-than-light travel, but violent ruptures in reality itself. Through these tears, objects were emerging. Huge metal cylinders, each one the size of a cargo transport, covered in strange markings and wreathed in energy that made her sensors scream warnings. "What are those?" someone whispered. The cylinders weren't drifting. They were falling with purpose, accelerating toward the station and the Skrull fleet with impossible speed. Chen watched in stunned silence as one cylinder slammed directly into a Skrull destroyer. The warship, massive and intimidating, crumpled like paper. The cylinder punched clean through its hull and kept going. Other cylinders followed. Some smashed through Skrull vessels. Others headed straight for the station, aiming for the exact locations where boarding teams had breached the hull. "Brace for impact!" Chen shouted. A cylinder struck their main docking bay with the force of a meteor. The entire station shuddered. Structural alarms screamed. Emergency systems struggled to compensate for the massive trauma to the station's integrity. When the shaking stopped, Chen brought up cameras focused on the docking bay. Through smoke and debris, she saw the cylinder had split open like a seed pod. And from within, figures were emerging. They wore armor unlike anything in the galactic database. Heavy plating that gleamed even through the smoke, integrated systems that glowed with amber light, helmets that concealed their faces completely. They moved with absolute confidence, weapons raised, advancing through fire and wreckage like they had done this 1,000 times. One of them paused directly in front of a security camera. For a moment, Chen saw herself reflected in that blank faceplate. Then the figure raised a hand in what might have been a salute, or perhaps just acknowledgement, before turning away to join the others. Terran Marines. They had actually come. And from the way they moved, from the weapons they carried, from the absolute certainty in their advance, Chen realized something that sent a chill down her spine. These humans hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to fight. And the Skrull were about to learn what that meant. Warriors in the smoke. Sergeant Marcus Kane stepped through burning debris and immediately assessed his surroundings. His helmet's advanced display painted the world in tactical information. Blue markers indicated civilians. Red showed hostiles. Green dots tracked his fire team. 20 meters ahead, a group of Skrull raiders had cornered several Krevix researchers against a sealed door. The raiders were taking their time, enjoying the fear of their victims. That ended when Kane opened fire. His weapon was a magnetic accelerator rifle, capable of firing tungsten rounds at hypersonic speeds. The first Skrull went down before his brain registered the threat. The second turned just in time to see Kane's second burst punch through his chest armor. The third actually raised his weapon, but Kane had already moved, his powered armor carrying him behind cover while his teammates finished the job. Section Alpha 7 secure, Kane reported calmly. Civilians protected. Moving to next objective. His comm system crackled with similar reports from other teams. 40 Marines had deployed across the station in 8 5-person fire teams. Each team had specific zones and clear objectives. The deployment had been planned during their 14-minute transit, coordinated by their shipboard AI and approved by their ground commander. No confusion, no wasted movement, just smooth execution. Kane had done this before. Not on this station, not for this species, but the fundamentals never changed. Civilians in danger. Hostiles with numbers but inferior training. A clock ticking toward either salvation or slaughter. The Terran Federation had built their entire rapid response doctrine around scenarios exactly like this. The Krevix researchers he had saved stared at him with their large compound eyes. Their translator units struggled with his clipped combat speech. Marines spoke in short, efficient sentences optimized for tactical communication, not casual conversation. Safe now, Kane told them. Move to core section. Follow the blue markers on the walls. My people will keep you protected. One of the Kreviks, an elderly male judging by his faded coloring, stepped forward. You came, he said, his voice filled with wonder. We called for help and you came. That's our job, sir. Please move to safety now. Kane gestured to one of his Marines. Rodriguez, escort these civilians to Safe Zone 2. On it, Sergeant. Kane pushed deeper into the station. His sensors picked up weapon discharges and screams. A firefight was happening one level up. He adjusted course, overriding a lift system to take him directly there. The doors opened on carnage. A dozen Skrell warriors had breached the station's medical center and were systematically executing wounded patients and medical staff. Bodies littered the floor. The medical personnel had tried to protect their patients, but they had no weapons, no training for this kind of horror. Kane didn't announce his arrival. He simply came out of the lift firing, his fire team flowing around him in a practiced formation. The Skrell were tough, he would give them that. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with natural armor plating along their limbs and thick, muscular bodies built for close combat. But tough wasn't the same as invincible. The engagement lasted 23 seconds. When it ended, every Skrell raider lay dead on the medical center floor. Kane was already calling for emergency medical support for the wounded who still had a chance to survive. All teams, this is Kane. Status report. The responses came in rapid succession. Team 2 had cleared the residential sectors. Team 5 had secured the research labs. Team 7 was engaged in heavy fighting near the command center but holding position. Casualties, 3 Marines with minor injuries. 29 confirmed hostile kills. Civilian casualties were significant but lower than they would have been without intervention. Kane, this is Commander Frost. The voice of his superior officer came through from the fleet overhead. Skrell are committing reinforcements. We count 20 additional boarding craft inbound to your position. Understood. We'll hold. Kane meant it. The Terran Marines had a simple philosophy: we fight so others don't have to. It wasn't just words or propaganda. It was a promise backed by brutal training, cutting-edge equipment, and a cultural mindset forged on Earth. Every Marine had grown up on a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill humanity. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate extremes. Survival had meant cooperation, innovation, and the absolute determination to protect the group at any cost. Earth had taught them well. Kane moved toward the command center where, according to his briefing data, he would find Director Chen. He found her surrounded by her staff, all of them staring at him with expressions mixing relief, fear, and total bewilderment. He removed his helmet. His face was unremarkable by human standards. 2 eyes, brown skin, a nose that had been broken twice, short dark hair. But to people who had never seen a human before, he must have looked strange. Alien. Director Chen, he said. I'm Sergeant Marcus Kane, Terran Federation Marines. My orders are to secure this station and protect all civilians until relief forces arrive. Chen found her voice. How did you get here so fast? Our calculations said 14 minutes was impossible. Tactical fold space insertion, Kane interrupted. We don't have time for technical briefings, Director. I need station layouts, civilian locations, and structural weak points the Skrell might exploit. She blinked, then nodded, bringing up holographic displays. We have civilians concentrated here, here, and here. The Skrell are cutting through in multiple locations. Our security forces have taken heavy casualties. Kane studied the layout for exactly 6 seconds, his enhanced cognitive training processing the tactical situation. Right. I'm repositioning my teams to create a defensive perimeter around civilian zones. Your remaining security forces should fall back to these positions. He highlighted several corridor junctions. We'll funnel the Skrell into kill zones where we control the engagement. Kill zones, Chen repeated the term like it was foreign to her. It probably was. Most civilized species had evolved beyond such concepts. Locations where we dictate how the battle happens, Kane explained. The Skrell rely on overwhelming force and close combat. We deny them those advantages by controlling the terrain and engagement distances. More Skrell boarding craft attached to the hull outside. Cutting torches flared somewhere in the distance. Someone screamed. The battle was accelerating. Kane pulled his helmet back on. Director, keep your people calm and away from the fighting. Lock down civilian sections and don't open them until my Marines give clearance. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. That distress call is going to bring more help. A lot more. You just need to trust us to hold until it arrives. Chen called after him. Why? Why are you doing this? We're not your allies. We have no treaties with your people. Why risk your lives for strangers? Kane looked back at her. Through his helmet speakers, his voice was calm and absolutely certain. Because you called for help, Director. And we heard you. Then he was gone, moving back into the smoke and fire to continue a battle that had only just begun. Across the station, the Terran Marines were rewriting the Skrell's expectations. In the engineering section, Corporal Lisa Martinez held a narrow corridor against 8 raiders. Her position gave her a perfect field of fire, and her training let her make every shot count. The Skrell tried to rush her position 3 times. 3 times she put them down with precise bursts from her rifle. In the botanical wing, Private First Class Jamal Washington had set up a defensive position protecting 200 civilian researchers. The Skrell sent a full squad to break through. Washington welcomed them with a combination of rifle fire and jury-rigged explosives created from the station's own maintenance supplies. His position held. Near the reactor core, Lance Corporal Sarah Chen, no relation to the director, coordinated with the station's Zent engineers to fortify critical systems. When Skrell raiders tried to breach the reactor room, they found reinforced barricades and a Marine who had zero intention of letting them pass. The engagement was brief and decisive. But the Skrell kept coming. More boarding craft. More raiders. They had numbers and they were willing to spend lives to achieve their objective. For every team the Marines eliminated, another appeared. Kane found himself in the central hub, coordinating 8 different firefights across the station. His heads-up display showed the tactical situation in real time. Red markers kept appearing. His green markers held their positions, but ammunition was becoming a concern. All teams, conserve ammo, he ordered. Fire discipline. Make every shot count. Kane, we've got a problem. It was Rodriguez, his voice tight with tension. They're trying to breach the primary civilian shelter. There's about 3,000 people in here, mostly younglings and their parents. If they get through, hold that position. I'm sending reinforcements. Sergeant, we're spread too thin as it is. Kane looked at his tactical display. Rodriguez was right. Every team was engaged. Every Marine was fighting multiple contacts. There were no reserves, no backup to send. Then you hold alone until I get there. I'm moving now. Kane ran through corridors filled with smoke and the sounds of battle. His armor's power assist let him cover ground faster than any unaugmented human could manage. He passed scared civilians huddled in alcoves, stepped over the bodies of both Skrell raiders and station personnel, and kept moving. He reached Rodriguez's position just as the Skrell were setting breaching charges on the shelter door. There were 12 of them, heavily armed and focused on their objective. They didn't see Kane until he was already firing. The battle was close, brutal, and exactly the kind of fight the Skrell excelled at. But Kane had one advantage: he was absolutely unwilling to let them through that door. When his rifle ran dry, he drew his sidearm. When that was empty, he used the rifle as a club. When a Skrell warrior grabbed him and tried to crush his armor with raw strength, Kane activated his armor's emergency systems and delivered enough electrical charge to stop the raider's heart. When it was over, Kane stood alone among 12 dead Skrell. His armor was damaged, his weapons were empty, and every muscle in his body screamed with fatigue. But the shelter door remained sealed. 3,000 civilians remained safe. Rodriguez, he gasped into his comm, status. Position secure, Sergeant. Are you okay? I'm fine. Hold that door. More are coming. And they were. Kane's sensors showed additional boarding craft approaching. The Skrell were committing everything they had, throwing raiders at the station in waves. It was a strategy that had worked for them countless times before. But they had never fought Terran Marines before. In orbit above the station, Commander Frost watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the TFS Relentless. She had 12 ships under her command, arrayed in defensive formation around Kepler 9. The Skrell destroyers were trying to break through, launching fighters and attempting flanking maneuvers. They were failing. Tactical, I want firing solutions on their command ship, Frost ordered. Solutions locked, Commander. Fire. The Relentless and her sister ships opened fire with weapons that made the Skrell's plasma cannons look primitive. Rail guns accelerated projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. Missile pods launched salvos of ship killers guided by AI that could predict evasive maneuvers. Point defense lasers created a web of light that destroyed incoming fire before it could reach their hulls. The Skrell fought back, but they were outmatched. Their ships were designed to intimidate frontier colonies, not engage military vessels crewed by people who had been perfecting the art of warfare since they lived in caves. On the station, Kane received an update from Frost. Sergeant, we've broken their fleet. The remaining Skrell ships are attempting to withdraw. What about the raiders already aboard? They're cut off. No extraction possible. You're authorized to offer surrender terms. Kane thought about the bodies he had seen. The medical staff executed while trying to protect their patients. The security forces who had died buying time for civilians to escape. The younglings who would grow up knowing their parents had been murdered by raiders. Negative, Commander. No quarter. There was a pause. Then Frost's voice came back, quieter but firm. Understood, Sergeant. Finish the job. The battle for Research Station Kepler 9 lasted another 40 minutes. The Skrell raiders, realizing they had no escape, fought with desperate fury. But desperation wasn't enough. The Terran Marines moved through the station methodically, clearing section by section, protecting civilians, and eliminating every hostile contact. When it was finally over, Kane stood in the command center with Director Chen. Around them, the station was coming back to life. Medical teams moved through corridors treating wounded. Engineers began assessing damage. Civilians emerged from shelters, looking for lost loved ones or simply trying to understand what had happened. Final count, Kane reported to Chen. All hostile forces eliminated. 47 Skrell raiders confirmed dead. No prisoners. He paused. Civilian casualties are at 234 dead, over 500 wounded. I'm sorry we couldn't save more. Chen looked at him with tears in her multiple eyes. You saved 8,000 lives, Sergeant. Without you, everyone on this station would be dead. Kane removed his helmet again. His face was covered in sweat and showed the strain of combat, but his eyes were calm. We did what we came to do, Director. Now our support ships are arriving to help with repairs and medical care. You're not alone anymore. As if on cue, more Terran vessels began appearing in the system. Hospital ships, engineering craft, supply transports. The Federation was sending everything needed to help Kepler 9 recover. Chen watched it all through her observation windows. I don't understand, she said quietly. We barely know each other. Our governments have minimal contact. Why help us? Kane was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Where we come from, Director, survival meant helping each other. Looking out for the group. Protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. It's built into who we are as a species. He looked out at the stars. Maybe other races evolved differently. Maybe they grew up on gentler worlds where such things weren't necessary. But Earth taught us that strength means nothing if you don't use it to defend others. He turned back to her. You called for help. That's all the reason we needed. As Kane walked away to check on his marines, Chen realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed in the last few hours. The Terrans were no longer just mysterious newcomers from unknown space. They were something far more significant. They were the ones who answered when others called for help. And across the stars, on worlds and stations throughout the frontier, that message would spread. A new force had emerged. One that didn't conquer or demand tribute. One that simply fought to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Skrell would remember this day. And they would learn to fear the humans who came when others cried for help.